All right. I love storytelling. You clearly have heard that over and over again. Even ChatGPT can be a good storyteller, but I want to talk to you about the customer story. There's going to be so many stories after somebody works with you, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a review. It's going to be a testimonial. You want those. But we need to talk about what story are you taking them through before they ever leave you to get to the testimonial side. All right, because everyone obviously has a story. What is your business story? And so by business story, I mean, yes, you have a personal story that's infused to this, but what is the customer journey? What does the customer story look like? So let's say we have that up and down hill that we talked about at the beginning. What is going to happen at each of those stages? I'm going to show you an example of one of the storylines that I love to talk about and teach to. So this is a 3-part Venn diagram that was given to me several years back, and I speak to a lot because it really allows people to understand where they fall on this map, as well as where their problems are. And so when I say fall, it's like where are they dwelling, and then where their problems are is generally where they fall, but then also where their strengths are. So I think it's important whenever you're bringing someone alongside a journey is to help them know that they've been equipped, that they have some really great traits and some things that have led them to this point that are awesome. And also you're about to equip them with even more to make it better, right? So whatever those invitational pieces are that you can encourage your community to come alongside you with, encourage them for the things that they do have so they're not coming feeling like, oh my gosh, I have nothing, right? This is the 3B, the being, brand, and business model. Each of these has a significance, and I dissect each of these significances to understand what does my person actually need. Everyone wants to be in the boundless bounty spot. This is where joyful entrepreneurship will and would exist, but a lot of times they're struggling in the beam, meaning they have a business plan that's great, and they understand who they are and what God has called them to do, but they have a terrible branding. So they have no exposure. There's no new people. They're having no social growth. And so they need help in the beam. They need to get out there more. So this is where podcasting and publishing are amazing, effective tools for that, getting on more stages. Then we've got the area of belief that they just need. So they might have a great sense of identity. Their brand is amazing, but their business model stinks. So this is where I call content creators, influencers, people who have a huge following. Their beam is on point, but when they come to them, they have no idea what a lead magnet is. You know more than they do. They don't understand how to convert them from a follower to a family member. Family is what I am in the business of doing, and I hope you are too. I want people to come into community and communion. So I have to build their belief in understanding why what they're doing is also a business. This is the people who have a hard time understanding business tree. They're over here just like, go and tell the world, let's go. But then they're on the belief side like, wait, I'm broke. I can't keep my lights on. I can't keep doing this. I have to go back to work, so I can't be an evangelist. And it all goes together. Then lastly is the boost. So identity is on point. They're doing amazing. God is just fully, just an image maker. They're an image bearer of Christ. But they don't know branding or business. They're just like sold out for Jesus all day long. This is where my pastors often are struggling. They know who they are. They know what they're called to do, but they don't understand branding or business. So I believe that there is all of these variable entities. This is what we're building our Founder Academy school on that will be coming in the future in content like this, but with so many other teachers and so many more in-depth trainings and educators and pastors and ministerial ordinations going to take place there. It's going to be so robust, but I'm showing you this as an example, not because you're realizing where you are, but you might do the activity. It's great. I'm doing it because I want you to build your own. I want you to build your own model for your business. And a model means this is what everything you do is premised off of. Now you can change it. You can have different models for different things. Maybe you build it for different courses. You have different models. I would have a total different model for joyful entrepreneurship than this, though portions of it, as I said, you would be existing in the boundless bounty because I'm teaching you about identity, teaching you about branding, and I'm teaching you business. So yes, this is check, joyful entrepreneur. It's also something you can utilize to premise an entire podcast around, to premise an entire business around, obviously you're doing that, premise an entire book around is what I meant to say. So what does the model look like? I'm going to show you some other examples. This is a model. If I was to teach you how to build an e-course, okay? Look, explore passions and purpose. I just pulled this off of Canva, so it's funny. That's what you guys did here. The second one is to experiment. We will experiment with your passion and purpose. What do you love? What do you want to do? What is the thing that you want to teach? Execute. We will execute your passion and purpose. This is not very robust. 4, evaluate. I like all the E's though. That's what drew me to it. We will evaluate your passion and purpose. And 5, we will forecast how your passion and purpose will evolve. So that's funny. This is the course or membership journey. This is 5 stages of that particular person's journey. Here's a couple of other examples. It doesn't have to be in a journey modality. It could be, I had the Venn diagram, yours could be a pie. I have a lot of people who have a pie chart of family, fun, fitness, finances. I'm not downgrading that. I just don't think that those things exist in separate compartments. They exist all in one entity. So it would look actually more like this with a connector because you cannot separate them out. Anyway, maybe this is your modality. Maybe the center point is here and they are going to do these different things separately. Maybe it's a wheel of life. There are so many models. Ultimately, how you do this and how you devise this, because you're like, Tamara, I'm going to create this out of thin air. Yes, and remember to use Canva, okay? So when you go to Canva, literally type in models, business models, type in business tools, or I think models is the best one, a template of a model. You can even go to Google and see some of the different images and maybe that will jog your idea. I've been a part of programs and seen teachers who like, you have to have a triangle. And this triangle is the trifecta of what you're training people in. Each side is one thing. Yes, you could do it that way, make it a triangle, but there's going to be something more for you. And a triangle doesn't always mean that it's going to be successful. Maybe the different customer journey maps that I told you about, the lifetime customer value, they're going to do this model here, then they're going to touch this model here, and then they're going to touch this model here. I have a friend who does retreats, and they're quarterly retreats, and you sign up for the annual package. You can go on them if you can't make that year, but you have to do them in the future, but you have to do them in order. And it's like fire, water, wind, and ice, I believe. And I probably said them out of order, but each one you go to and you're building on the next. So you couldn't get all of them in one. She doesn't do anything with them all in one. You have to do this retreat format because it's immersive and it's important. And so what is that for you? I want you to take time to really dissect it. This is a very important part. And then once you have that, this could be literally gleaned from your pain to passion trajectory. We're going all the way back to like, what is it that you're doing? We build a lead magnet out of that, but now you're building your actual training methodology, your framework. This will be 10 coaching sessions. This would be 10 e-course trainings. This would be 10 chapters to your book. This is 10 months of content. Whatever it is that you're here to do, you're going to build it out of creating this model. It's going to be your MO, okay? It's ultimately your MO. And it's going to be done so and created into its own customer journey map here momentarily. This is the model that they're going through in order to have an experience with you. I'm going to show you this next one, which is the 7 framework. This is taking whatever that journey looks like, whatever that step is, whatever that model looks like, and breaking down each of those individually, session by session, chapter by chapter, course by course, webinar by webinar, however you want to do it, thinking about it in this framework. Every single one should touch every single one of these. So I could use it as a podcast. If I was going to be teaching, the focus and intention of the teaching is on joyful entrepreneurship. My intention is to dispel the lie of being rich is bad. Okay, I'm going to use the other one that we used. The shift is I want to move them from poverty mentality to profit mentality. The resource support that I'm going to give them is an analysis of financial investment based in wealth, time, talent, and treasure. Okay, it's going to be a resource. I'm going to give them something. I also have a supporting book that's going to be a great tool for them. Then my testimonial is that I've taken all these other people through it, and this is what's happened when they've changed their prices and the outcome they've had on the other, and how they actually served people more at the higher price margin, more than they did with the lower price margin, because they were called into action. They were called up to the endeavor versus not really caring because I'm only making $37 each. Okay, I'm just speaking to myself. I'm not speaking to you. I swear. I promise. I'm not. I am. I am. I'm speaking to you. Make sure that you're rising to the occasion. You want to make that profit margin, that LCV that we talked about, worth it to you, happy to you. You don't want to resent the client when you come to them because you charge too little. It's not their fault. You charge what you charged, but you didn't value yourself. You didn't value your time. So that's a whole nother layer I didn't actually discuss. So I'm glad. Thank you, Lord, for dropping that. So testimonial, it's enhancing the intention of that particular class, that particular podcast episode, that particular chapter. Then it's the result and the outcome. The result is that at the end of the time with me during that particular training, you are going to leave with a profit mentality that you are more than what you've been charging, and that God loves you and he is not mad at you for charging in your business tree. He is not flipping over your table in the temple. That is not God's heart. He knows your heart and you've aligned yourself, and he believes in you for what you're doing to expand the kingdom. And you are stewarding your 10% tithing, and you are actually doing a 90-10 where you flip that upside down and you're giving away 90% of the profits and 10% is for you to stay. You are looking at wealth in a whole different mentality. The activation, the homework assignment for that particular training is it could be just like I mentioned, comparables. Compare yourself in the market, find comps in the market to who you want to become like. Who's the educator you want to teach like? What price point do you want to teach like? And then dissect, what are they doing that makes them better than you? Or what are they doing that you could add into what you were doing so that you could increase your valuation? Make sense? The coolest part, obviously, the center point to this wheel, which, by the way, this is another model. You could use this model and create your entire course framework. This is just one session, is the God lens. What does God say about all of these things? If you are not looking through that lens, even if you're not presenting this, remember faith forward versus faith founded, you need to know that what you're teaching, what your intention is, what your shift is, what your resource support is, if you're guiding people to the dark and you're not guiding people to the light because you're giving them, a portal open. I'm talking real spiritual here, but let's say you're giving them a resource by a non-believer who has a lot of things going on in their life that you don't condone. Okay. Let's say you're saying, here's a teacher, a resource support, go follow this teacher. They teach about, I have somebody in mind, narcissism. And then you realize that they're not a good human and they're following that person. You as a leader, as a joyful entrepreneur, you are a leader. You are a front runner. You are a trailblazer. I'm going to get on a soapbox and I have to tell you because it's so important. And if you don't remember that a part of that being a messenger is that there are going to be people who want more of the message. They become your flock and you are a shepherd to said flock. So if you're presenting things to them that are half truths, that's a lie, because the only truth is truth. And so understanding the God lens to everything that we're presenting is so critical. You're going to sleep so much better. I promise you. You're going to be that lead magnet that I told you, because you're going to be a leader worth following. And people are going to be magnetized to that. They're going to be magnetized to it for the right heavenly reasons, the right aligned reasons versus the dark. And that's no good. There's a lot of leaders who led out of darkness and it ended up having world destruction connected to it. Not that you have any intention to do that, but just recognizing that it is possible. And even one person trained up in the way in which they should not go can have a massive ripple effect on the rest of humanity. We know this biblically. We know this historically. One person can really pull a lot of people off guard, out of alignment. Okay. All right. You guys are going to think I'm crazy with this next activity, but it's time. It's time. All right. Do you feel it? Do you feel the bubbling in your spirit? It's not time to just do this work. You have to do this work too. It's time to set a date. Set a date. And this date is for your live workshop, your first masterclass, or your launch. Okay? It's time. You got to tell the world. You've been doing it already via the Marketing Momentum Challenge. I'm so proud of you. Keep doing that thing. Tag me so I can see it. I want you to tag me. That'd be so fun. I love seeing what the students are doing. It's so exciting. You're the family. We're the family of Christ. We need to know what the other body parts are doing. So share with me so that I can see this full picture of what God is providing. But you have to pick a date, okay? I want you to give yourself at least 5 weeks, okay? Some people, I mentioned the 2-week mark or the 2-month launch to shifting and finances and all of that based on my personal client. They've done this content and they have been able to, if you're at the point where you have completed every other assignment and you're doing your homework, I'm so proud of you, then you could make this live workshop 3 weeks out, okay? But if you still have all this other stuff to do, give yourself 5 weeks so you're not feeling that sense of overwhelm. 3 weeks gives people enough time to put it in their calendar, but not too far off that they're going to forget. 3 weeks allows them to see if it's for them. If not, they can follow or not follow, and they can decide next week or the week after. But if you do it 5 weeks out, sometimes it's too far for people. They don't even know what they're doing tomorrow. So 5 weeks is feels like impossible, or they forget about it, or something else comes up and they don't reschedule. All right, I'm going to tell you a fun way that I did this launch in person. The very first time that I ever gathered people, the very first time that I ever shared what in the world the Lord was telling me to do. And it was around New Year's of, way pre-COVID, okay? Just a long time ago when my podcast started. And the Lord said, gather my people. And he's told me that again many times. It's interesting. I hadn't ever thought about it. Gather my people. I've done it virtually. I've done it as a mobilized church with the Founder Collective, but this was in person. So this gives you context to, if you're not, you don't have a huge digital following yet, social media following, you have a community and people know who you are. And if you feel like they don't know who you are, get invested into the communities that do know who you are. If one person showed up, that one person is connected to 16 people, okay? So imagine your room is filled with 16 people. That's a great first speaking event. That's a great first Zoom room, okay? Even if one person shows up, sometimes that one person is you. I've had many events where nobody shows up and I still played full out. I recorded that little guy, whatever the video webinar was, and I posted that thing. I turned it into a podcast. I turned it into YouTube. I practiced and I did what I was preaching I was going to do. Because if you just are like, oh gosh, and then you get in your head and maybe I shouldn't be doing this and this isn't meant for me and nobody cares and nobody's going to show up and why am I even doing this? This is worthless. I'm never going to make money. You get into that rat wheel, you are not joyful, first off, and two, you're going to quit. And we know that the business's closing rate is way larger than business success rate. I want you to be on the sustenance side, which is the sweetest part of all of that. It's the continuation of what God is calling you to do. It's the evolution of what God is calling you to do. And it's the recognition that you are not a quitter. You are made for this. You're a warrior. So I send out a text message and I send it to people that I really felt fell into my avatar, my desire. It was also like, who do I want to do this with, right? Remember, even though a customer chooses you, a client chooses you, you also get to choose them. Just because they're going to pay you money doesn't mean you want to take their money, because there is a relationship that's about to be established and it could go bad south if there is not a cohesion in what it is that you guys are coming together to do. So I brought together via text. It was a very incognito text. I basically was like, if you are ready to take your life to the next level, if you are ready to do it in community, if you're tired of being isolated, guess what? I'm literally taking you down the storyboard of what they want and their problems. And I had, I think, it was right under 100% show up rate. It's crazy. So I packed all these women in this tiny little office building that was my husband's at the time. And there was standing room only. Come on, God, you're so good. Standing room only. And I opened up Proverbs 31. And this was after years of my coming to Jesus in the way in which I am now relationally, and having an encounter with him and getting ordained and all of this stuff, and God reigniting my heart and passion for entrepreneurship after a 3-year time of just desolation and not any of that. So it was so special. They come together. I open up Proverbs 31 and I start reading from it. And I basically just ask them to raise their hand. Hey, who in here could see themselves as this type of woman? And, just calling out that I saw that in them, what a gift. So when you go to tell people or invite people about this, call them out. Call them by name. Invite them. Introduce them to the concept in a way that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to introduce them. I'm not telling you to put a bunch of women in a room, but if God tells you to do that, then do that thing. Host a dinner. Host an ornament exchange. Do a book club. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can bring people together, and I'm excited for you to do that. So just know that I'm rooting you on, and there's lots of different ways. There's no wrong way to invite people to share your message, and you can do so by getting into this next thing, which is ultimately the storyboarding. This is the hero's journey. Okay. This hero's journey is one of the main ways in which people design Disney movies in general. But if you think of any Disney movie, you can follow this call to adventure, use Lion King and walk through this as an exercise for yourself. Knowing that there are elements in here that are, I need to redo this as like the biblical hero's journey, like Jesus's journey, because that would be awesome from an education perspective. Actually, I'm writing that down. See, I'm an action taker. I want a Jesus hero's journey chart. I've said it before and I haven't written it down, so I never remember. I'm writing it down now. All right. So with that, just being mindful that some of it might be a little bit different than like your rebirth in Revelation and all of that. But think about your rebirth connected to what God is calling you to do now. Why are you doing this? When you know every part of this, it's an amazing way for you to share the story and the evolution of why it is that you're doing what you're doing. It also cues up that model that you've developed. It also is a great content creator for you to share with other people, and it allows you to succinctly come into alignment with what your why is that we talked about briefly, why your passions and pains intersected, how they intersected, and a podcast. It's a great way for you to have a podcast to teach about to other people. So here's a way to write it, and the way in which you're going to do it is understanding your main topic. What's your main topics? These are the main content pillars of your brand, okay? So you mentioned, and you did this already sort of with the emotional health, the relational health, that example that I gave you with the sticky notes. This is connected to the next step, more importantly, is what's the subconcept, what's the story, what's the idea, what's the testimonial? Let me give you a follow-up example. So Joyful Entrepreneur, you heard a bit about my evolution. The subconcept is that I want to teach the myths around the industry. I want to bust those myths wide open because I have invested in people who were lying. I've invested in people who were creating fake brands based on their social media footprint and didn't have the truth behind what it is that they were doing. The idea is to just be candid and honest with people and invite them into that honesty and invite them into the exploration of developing business with you. And then the testimonial, it's a personal testimonial, and the amount of clients that I've heard their sob stories about similar concept that they got invested into the wrong thing. This happened to me. This is actually the exact same storyline of why we started our publishing house. So I can go through this, why we started our publishing house. I can go through this and why I started my podcast. I can go through this and why I started Joyful Entrepreneurship. Okay, so you should be understanding the story, the whys behind what it is that you're doing, and creating content from it, which is what this is. All right, so where are you showing up socially? Where are you showing up personally? How are you having time with the Lord? Are you actually asking Him before you do all of these activities, God, what do you say about this? What is that number that you want me to use? What stories do you want me to dissect? What does this model look like to you? Show me an image, God. I remember working with a friend who ended up using a tree, and we were doing this process in a one-on-one, and I was like, let me build this framework with you. And I was like, for some reason, I keep seeing this tree with like the roots and the branches are your model, and the leaves are the people that are going to grow in season, and then they're going to fall away, and not because they're dead, but it's time for them to have the acorns to plant the seeds for other people to come alive in the way that they're meant to come alive, but you've given them the how. And she just started crying because it was a Holy Spirit moment that she was literally always connected to trees, and that God was preparing her for what it is that she was going to do for other people, because she had been so focused on her rooting system. She didn't even think about the trees that were inside of her tree. I was going to say forestry or forest, right? I was going to say vineyard, but that's not what I meant. That was not grapes. Yeah, her forestry, her forest. All right. So really, God wants to share these things with you. He wants to reveal your model. He wants to reveal your pricing structure. He wants to reveal your story in a whole new way than you've ever maybe taken the time to understand, and how that story is going to connect with everyone else that you come into encounter with on your journey of always becoming and serving and the evolution of your hourglass. Okay. You see how all of this is coming together. So make sure you choose that date. That's one of the most important things that you can do today, is choose that date, do your model. You're going to need that for the training that you're going to be giving, because I'm going to share with you what that is. And then you need to develop, because you've already done all of these things. You want the date to be associated to your lead magnet, which is going to go into the framework development. You're going to be teaching all the stuff that you've been building, and it's going to go down this beautiful journey map that we're going to do in our next video. So enjoy.